Καλησπέρα σε όλους από το Press Project, το Ράδιο Venceremos, τη Λαμπρινή Θωμά και την εξαιρετική μου σημερινή παρέα. Μια πολύ ιδιαίτερη παρέα και πολύ σημαντική παρέα. Είμαι πάρα πολύ περήφανη που φέραμε εδώ στο στούντιο του Press Project τον Abubaker Abed, τον συνάδελφο από την Παλαιστίνη που φέρνει στην Αθήνα το δίκτυο δημοσιογράφων για την Παλαιστίνη Ελλάδα. Και πρέπει να σας πω τα εξής. Πρώτον, μαζί μας είναι ο Ραφίκ Αμπντίν, ο συνάδελφος από τις ραδιοκοινότητες του Κόκκινου, ο οποίος και θα κάνει κάποιες ερωτήσεις. Είχε πολύ λίγο χρόνο για συνεντεύξεις ο Αμπουμπακέρ μας, οπότε μαζευτήκαμε για να γίνουν μαζί οι συνεντεύξεις.
Καλησπέρα σας και από μένα και ευχαριστώ πολύ πολύ και το Press Project και εσένα προσωπικά. Συγχαρητήρια πολλά για την πρωτοβουλία και ως δίκτυο και σε σένα.
Ευχαριστούμε πολύ.
Αρχομό του Αμπουμπακέρ.
Ο Αμπουμπακέρ είναι ένα παιδί που μεγάλωσε στη Γάζα. Έφυγε για πρώτη φορά από τη Γάζα στη ζωή του τον Απρίλιο που μας πέρασε. Η συνέντευξη θα γίνει στα αγγλικά, σας ενημερώνω. Η συνέντευξη και από τους δυο μας και οι απαντήσεις του θα είναι στα αγγλικά, αλλά θα μπουν υπότιτλοι πολύ σύντομα από το Press και για όσους δεν την μιλάνε την βαρβαρική. Abubaker, welcome. Welcome to Greece. Welcome to our studio. Thank you for accepting and being here. It's an honor. Really, it's an honor to have you with us.
Thank you so much. The honor is mine as well, believe me.
You grew up in Gaza. You were born and grew up in Gaza. You left Gaza for the first time this April, isn't it?
Yeah, correct.
While you were growing up, we used to call it here the biggest concentration camp in the world. How was it growing up in Gaza?
I mean, probably it could be indescribable sometimes, but, you know, living in Gaza amid siege, amid continuous bombardments, and amid different escalations in different and previous wars, especially four wars that we lived before the ongoing genocide or the genocide, it feels like you were dying slowly, you never lived. So, even I would be very conservative on using the word grow up, because I didn't grow up. I was dying up, I would say. And why I'm saying this is because, you know, everything in Gaza was inaccessible. People, you know, couldn't find anything at all. People were living in dilapidated houses. People couldn't find dwellings. People just wanted to live amid nothing, with literally almost nothing. And when I was going, like, you know, my father's a working class person. He's a part of the working class community, and he was not a rich man. And the people who were rich in Gaza, you know, you could count them on your hands. They were like just very, very few people who would have contracts with companies around or wherever, but my father was a teacher. So there were things that I would fancy as a child. For example, when I look at the children in Europe, when I look at the children in Greece, they would have everything, literally. They would have vegetables, fruits, a very nice setting inside their room, in the house, and they would live peacefully. They would go to the parks, they would play football, they would do everything. No, that wasn't the case. So I never lived like a childhood, and that's why I'm trying to redefine myself. Am I really 22 years old, or am I really 6 months old since I left Gaza? Because Gaza, behind the fence, life behind the fence wall, and quote-unquote life inside Gaza, there are two different lines that never meet. Because in Gaza, as I told you, you are everything that you would have. Your human rights, your food, your calories, everything that you would dream of, it's controlled by Israel. And many things were not allowed to get into Gaza because of Israel's restrictions and highly crippling siege imposed on the Strip since 2006. And this is just a part of the problem, because in 2021, I earned different scholarships around Europe, particularly in the UK and in the United States. And I couldn't get out because of Israel, because of the siege, because of the financial difficulties. And I was just devastated that they couldn't pursue my bachelor's degree or my studies abroad just because I was plunged into such a very devastated swathe of land, which is the Gaza Strip, and I couldn't feel the latitude or the freedom to get anything. And I was deprived of everything, of my freedom. I was stripped of my humanity. And that wasn't only me, because I lived with the trauma. I still have a trauma from the war in 2009. And I vividly remember how we were sleeping in one room. So if a bomb would fall or was going to fall upon us, we would die all together. So we would, avoid anyone grieving the loss of the other. And that's how we were living all the time. We never slept in times of wars. We never slept. We didn't know the meaning of sleep. The starvation that has been imposed in Gaza recently, there is not a new definition in the Gaza dictionary. No, it was there since 2006 in the wars that Israel launched on Gaza. And we were eating canned food not since October the 7th, but that was in 2014, in 2021, and in the wars that were prior to the genocide that started in 2023. If we really want to talk about it, and you talk about the unemployment rates, and that most graduates don't have the ability or they cannot find job opportunities after they graduate. I was indebted to my university. I couldn't pay my tuition fees in Gaza, and this is something, it's very hurtful, I know. But this is the reality, that my father and I, we were not able to pay and afford the tuition fees. That wasn't only me, but most of the university students, they couldn't do that. And most of the university graduates, they couldn't even, until this moment, I'm talking to students from Gaza, and they tell me, we haven't been able, and they graduated 6 years ago, 5 years ago, probably 4 years ago, and they couldn't even, their families and they could not even pay the fees to get their certificate out. And what is the price for the certificate, or what are the fees for the certificate? It's just like 200 euros, 150 euros. It's not that much, but they couldn't do that because they have priorities, and their main priority is to survive. And for them, education is a luxury. Having a proper 3 meals a day is also a luxury. Going around and having the best treatment in the best hospital, this is a very much of a luxury. So the human rights, in very simple words, the human rights that the people have around the world as any other human beings, those have been deemed and viewed for us as luxuries, not from October 2023, but since the siege was imposed in Gaza in particular, and for many, many years. So this is the reality of what it means to live, quote unquote, live in Gaza before the genocide. And the reason why you should see, and we'd finish with this point, and the reason why you would see some Palestinians in Gaza saying, we had a life before October the 7th, because this is the normal reaction. If you had one eye to see with, and then you lost the sight of this eye, you would say, I wish I just had this eye and I didn't need to see with another eye. We were asking to see with another eye, to get our sight with the 2 eyes. We were asking the international community to step in, the human rights organizations to do something for us and to stop the blockade. We never wanted to fight wars. But then what happened was they ignored us. They completely ignored us. And then the whole world, Israel, under the auspices of almost the whole world, the governments, they pierced our other eye. So we've become completely blind, and we've become the most desperate people on the planet, that we were forced to eat animals' food.
I want you to remind to the people, because younger people may not know it, that there were a lot of peaceful protests that were fought by Israel with death and killings of innocent people before we had the war, as they call it, the war in Gaza, before the genocide started, before October 7th, that the people of Gaza tried lots of times, and also that the bombs were never stopped falling. It was like
Definitely.
6 months or a year, and then again they will start. And you were growing up in this, right?
Exactly. I mean, it wouldn't even span, you know. We actually, you know, peace for us is a trek. And for anyone in Gaza who's been under relentless bombardment and under these brutal wars by Israel, peace for us is not relaxing, it's not relieving, it's more of a trek. Someone who has been under such stresses, under such pressure and pain and grief and agony, they will never know the meaning of peace, even if you achieve it. And that's what happened in 2018. You're right. In 2018, we were having peace. You know, we organized loads of peaceful protests. We never held a gun. And then when we approached the borders and told people, look, we are trying to do it. Like, we're peaceful. Don't want violence. We don't want anything. We just want the blockade to be lifted and to have our own rights back, to go back to our homeland that was stolen in 1948. By the help of the British government and other countries across the globe. But then we were shot dead. Many people are still having life-changing injuries until now, since 2018, and many people have lost their lives. And this is what happened. Nobody cared about us before this genocide. And even when the people cared, when the genocide started, you're still seeing, you know, it's not enough. It's not the least even to help Palestine and to help Palestinians. And when people started paying attention to Gaza, it came at an unbelievable cost. 70,000 Palestinians have been killed. Over 120,000 Palestinians have been maimed, and much of the Gaza Strip, up to 90%, have been reduced to rubble. So this cost that we paid to tell people and to tell the outside world that we were terrorized, that we were brutalized, ostracized, and always killed and maimed by Israel, this cost, the world must be liable for it. The world must find ways to demand justice and hold those governments accountable for facilitating the pain and the plight of Palestinians for over 75 years. And the world must pay, and I'm saying this unequivocally, that the world must pay for the losses that we've paid, that we've sacrificed, for everything we've sacrificed, not only since October the 7th, but for many, many, many years, because all this dilemma and all this horror and terror by Israel could have been solved if the world were a bit fair.
Truth is, one of the lies our current government, because we had pro-Palestinian governments in the past years, a lot of them, and we are a pro-Palestinian people, thank God. Inshallah, I think it's what I have to say here. Our current government is complicit in the genocide. And one of the lies they said, and again, is Gaza was self-governed since 2006. They could do better for themselves. What is this self-govern that they're talking about under apartheid and behind that wall? Is everything that you're telling us now, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's, you know, in 2006, you know, putting the blame on the victims is really dangerous. Is really deadly, putting the blame on the victims. We governed ourselves, right? But when we governed ourselves, you put a siege. You enabled enforcing a siege on Gaza for more than 18 years, or for more than 20 years even. And if you are blaming the victims and the Palestinians for whatever happened since 2006, right, then why have you been silent on what occurred to us in these years? So people don't see with two eyes, and they're not ready, especially the governments, they're not ready to take off their blinkers, no. They want to see with one eye because they're hypocritical, they're unjust, and they are, you know, their hands are very much soaked in blood and colonialism and stealing, and that's how the empire works. And for them, Palestinian lives don't matter. No. And I read a bit of history about Greece, and that's what happened to Greece. They wanted to rule out Greece from the prosperity, and I would be conservative in the word prosperity here, of the Europeans, of Europe, because they say Greece, that these people are not equal lives. No, they're not equal lives. And that's what the British did. That's what the British did in particular to Greece. And when they created that civil war and caused thousands and thousands of deaths out of absolutely nothing, that is an extension. What is happening in Gaza is an extension to what happened in Greece. And because Greece and Palestine are neighbors, we're seeing the history being repeated. And we have to be aware of that, and people have to defy it.
Thank God we're still good people in Greece, I think. Most of us.
I see it.
Most of us, we're trying. The other thing is, you wanted to be a sports journalist, actually football, right?
Yeah,
it was your dream. And then you found yourself covering the genocide of your own people, being underfed, having to work hard to bring us the truth that Western media were not able and didn't want to bring to us. I was reading, I was seeing an interview by Robert Fisk. He was a great journalist years ago. And he has said that one of the good things that come out of the hell that they created in Gaza is that they refused to Western journalists to go in there. So the Gazan journalists had to cover what was going on. So they would see the suffering of their people with the eyes of their people.
Yeah.
In a way, you were covering the destruction and the death and everything, being part of the people who was...
Exactly.
It's very different for any war zone I've ever been in. Most of journalists go to other places to cover war zones, but you were there and you were suffering and you were seeing. How is it? What kind of power and where do you find it?
It's devotion, I would say. It's devotion to my homeland and to my people. I always say that if I'm not going to defend, I would say it all the time, that everyone in Gaza has a duty towards their homeland, and everyone is fighting in their own way. The doctor is fighting with helping the patients survive. The journalist is fighting with conveying, conveying the message of their own people, and a father is fighting when he tries to fetch food and water for his family. A mother's fighting with educating the kids and keeping them, calm amid the unbearable horrors that they are living through. So everyone is fighting in their own way. And because I learned English when I was a kid, and I started speaking the language quite well when I was a kid. And when this genocide started, because I actually haven't covered any wars before the 2023 genocide. That's my first genocide, my first war that I've covered.
You were 20 years old.
I was 20 years old, that's correct. And when I began reporting, I said to myself, and my father told me this, that, well, you know how to address the Western audiences. And I know that. I'm capable of it because I have done it many times before, but in other matters, not in a journalistic way. And I was talking to myself and I said, no, this should have been my job. I know you don't want to be this way, you don't want to be this genocide reporter, but you have to do it because it's your own people. And that's a part of self-defense, that's a part of resistance. Your journalism is resistance, and my journalism is resistance. Conveying the truth is resistance. Telling the stories, the untold stories of the people who have been living the worst times of history, this is also resistance. And that's what I wanted to do. So I started doing that, but I was very cautious, very vigilant, and my family told me that you have to be very careful. And they were always keen that where I should go, what I should report, and when I should go back or report. And honestly, and I have to say this, that most of the work, if not all of it, that I've done in Gaza was discussed with my family in advance. because they cared about them and I didn't want to be a harm to them. And in the end, I turned out to be a harm to them, which Israel seeks doing to any, or seeks creating to any Palestinian in Gaza. Any profession, any duty in Gaza is being criminalized by Israel. The doctors are criminals, the journalists, the fathers, the teachers, the educators, anyone in Gaza doing a job to their homeland to help resist the occupation and Israel's barbaric genocide. He's a war criminal. He's a criminal.
Well, what they did, I said that a lot of times in Greek to my audience, but I will say it in English because you're here now, is this. Journalists, doctors, and the UN were the witnesses that people will hear to. So you were the first target because they knew that they wanted to create a genocide. And they knew that they don't want anyone to be able to talk about it. So all the people who will be heard outside of Gaza had to die. You were putting yourself in the target, being a journalist, as the doctors did, as the nurses did, as the people of the UN after, I don't know, they have some hundreds of dead themselves too. But the killing journalists, having more dead journalists than all the other wars of the 20th century and the 21st century combined.
Absolutely.
It's something that says that they knew very well what they wanted to do.
Absolutely. I mean, it's, again, you're right. It was a very unbelievable risk, but I had to take it. It was worth it. Our Palestine, our homeland, is worth our blood. And I'm not better than anyone who died, who was killed in Gaza. And honestly, here's what I would really say and see as well, is that even if I were killed, I would have been very proud of myself of what I did for Gaza and for my homeland. And that's the mentality that we hold in Palestine, that we really want to do something for our homeland. And that's why we carried on, no matter the risk. That's why even the slain journalists, when they were targeted by Israel and hunted down, they were, you can read in their wells after the deaths that I did what I did, and I'm very proud of what I did. And that's what we wanted, is to fight together. We're not going to leave the battlefield. The battlefield is shared between us as journalists, between doctors, between anyone, between our armed resistance fighters as well. We all share the same goal, which is the liberation. And the liberation in the entire history didn't come for free. It was at a great cost. And this is what history has told us. So our blood is absolutely very precious, is priceless. And losing a soul is very agonizing, very, very costly, and, you know, something that no one would bear looking at in the entire world. But let it be what it is, because Palestine deserves our blood, and we're going to continue this way.
Palestine deserves our blood too. There were people here who were ready, but it's very difficult to get into Gaza, you know that. There were people who would put their lives on. Was it something that you learned, that we were in the streets all over the world, that we were fighting for you?
I saw that many times in Gaza, and I saw the countries, and I saw Greece as well, and many countries were protesting in the streets.
The people knew?
And yeah, the people in Gaza absolutely knew. And believe me, it's, what I'm going to say is that this has really uplifted our hearts, our spirits, since day one. And I always said it in Gaza, you are our hope. You give us hope amidst the most extreme adversaries. And that's what really helped us keep going on and keep enduring the pain. Yes, we needed people to do more. We needed them to do everything they could to stop it. But one thing I would say that really hurt me a lot, and I was always calling on people to make it possible, is we need to isolate Israel. Because if Israel were isolated since the beginning of the genocide, and let's presume that Israel didn't receive support from the Greek government, not from European governments, not from the US government, and this could have been plausible by the free peoples of the world by their spirits and their power. And if this happened, Israel wouldn't have maintained the ability to go that far for 2 years in Gaza, destroying everything. No, they would never have this, capability to do it. But because Gaza was isolated, it was flipped around. Gaza was isolated, and it was perceived by the majority of the world, governments and some disgusting people, that Gaza is the sponsor of terror, or the birthplace of terror, because of October the 7th. And then people in the governments took that. They isolated the oppressed and the victims. They put the blame on them. And that's how it started. So one of the reasons why this genocide continued for that long is the consent manufactured by the governments, Western politicians, and media outlets that has made it possible to continue. And we need to remind people of that. But we should have fought stronger than that. And that's what we need to continue. We don't need to forget about the 2 years. We have to remind them of their war crimes, to demand justice, to keep doing what we're doing. And our aim was not just to stop, a halt to the genocide. Our aim was clear: to free Palestine, because the freedom of the Palestinians is going to be the freedom of the world. And we have opened the eyes of the world to so many things that they were fooled by.
Yes, we owe you a lot. I will give the microphone to Rafik in 5 minutes. I just want to do a last question, let's say. There's a lot of people in our side that say, okay, now we have a ceasefire, things are going better, we don't have to get in the streets so often. What do you say to that?
I would say that the real suffering of Palestinians has started when the ceasefire took effect. And we need you now more than before, more than when there is a genocide taking place, because we need to rebuild not only our houses, not only our neighborhoods that have been devastated by Israel, but also our hope. And our hope and futures are also part of your futures. So you need to be standing behind us to make this possible. And our aim and our goal was never about a ceasefire, was never about an end to the genocide, because we cannot just say after 70,000 Palestinians killed that and the destruction of much of the Gaza Strip that, well, we were asking for a ceasefire. No, we're getting back to phase 0, probably behind 0, which was before October the 7th. That's not what the cost that we wanted to pay for. That's not the result that we wanted to pay for. No. We need you now more than ever. Because in the end, if you stay silent and you let it go, the turn and the barbarism and the terror will reach you. And then you will bite your fingers saying, well, I wish I could do more to stop this evil from growing. It's like a cancer.
Rafik.
I would like to ask, what is the first thing you would like someone who only watches from the television but does not experience it like you to ask you about Gaza?
I want them to ask me about, do we really live in Gaza? And that's the question. Do we really live? What's behind the news? What's behind the numbers, the death toll? I want them to know that. I want them to feel the pain of Palestinians, because if they feel the pain, they will never stop. It's like a mother and her daughter, or her son. If her son is going through a very difficult time, of trauma, of pain, and the mother will never leave him. No. And this is the same. That this is Gaza. It's going through a lot of pain, a lot of suffering. Nobody cares. Would you leave it? No. And the Greek people in particular were your neighbors. I don't think there are any people around the world who would love their neighbors to be killed in front of them and not doing anything.
After leaving Gaza, when was the first time you slept well? I mean, do you dream?
Very, very great question. I do have a lot of terrible nightmares about Gaza, about being bombed. When I hear a car driving fast, I really feel afraid, get terrified, because it reminds me of the rockets, because when the rocket explodes before it gives like a very kind of kind of fast sound, similar to the car. And yeah, I really have a lot of terrible nightmares of even being bombed in the place where I live, being killed, being maimed. Those dreams are still, those nightmares are still chasing me and really torturing me. But I think the first good sleep I had, I would say the first good sleep was when the ceasefire happened. I slept really well. I slept the first time very, like, having that state of peace and that state of tranquility. Well, I really slept well.
What about your dreams?
I think my dreams for now are not important, I would say, because there is Palestine and that's what I have been fighting for. So if I would say that I have a dream, I would, because I drove across occupied Palestine when I left Gaza. I want to be there. I want to live there. That's my dream now, that I will keep fighting for until it happens and it comes true. This is the only dream. I'm not going to say, well, my dream before the genocide was becoming a football reporter. Things changed. Well, all these, the whole story has been appended, but now it is the time for one thing, free Palestine. And when it's a free Palestine, and I live back in my stolen hometown, which is Beit Daras, which lies on the coastal line, this will be the only dream that I want to have, and I will keep fighting for them at the cost.
Mm-hmm. But as long as hatred continues and increases these past 2 years, can there be a realistic peace plan in this region, in your opinion?
Peace between whom?
I mean, is there any realistic way to keep all that situation in a normal base, in a peace plan, without
the prerequisite to a peace plan is holding the criminals accountable and expelling them and setting definitions right. What is Palestine? What is happening in Palestine? Because if we follow the misleading information, we are delusional and we lie to ourselves. That's the prerequisite to finalizing or achieving a peace deal. And that's how we should start. We need peace. We never wanted to fight wars, as I told her. But if you have governments that blindly and staunchly support Israel, okay, then what do we have is that what we will have is continuity of the mass killings, of the mass starvation and mass displacement. Because simply these people in our governments, I wouldn't say my government, but in our governments, are serious killers. They don't care about human life. They don't. They tell you they care about human lives, but they don't. They don't at all. What they care about is money, growth, wealth, and their own interests. They don't even care about their own people. You would see over the past 2 years, and you would see the governments themselves. Look at Britain. They care about a bunch of Maccabi Tel Aviv fans, but they care about the children impoverished and homeless in their home country. And look at the United States. They have invested billions and billions of dollars in foreign wars, not only just in Israel, or of course mostly Israel, but also Ukraine and Russia. And they have left thousands of people affected by natural disasters alone, American people alone. Look at the crackdown they are doing right now. They're taking on pro-Palestinian voices just for Israel. So this concept that is spreading around needs to stop, needs to be removed. And how could we remove it is by ensuring that we have just international laws and that we have human rights organizations that should be, that deservedly can be called human rights organizations. organizations, because I actually don't believe in human rights organizations anymore. I don't believe in humanitarian organizations anymore. And I'm going to say this very clearly. Human rights organizations and humanitarian associations or organizations, they have paved for the way for the genocide to continue.
That's why I'm trying to understand the realistic background of that ceasefire and not the political one. Like, I'm trying to understand your comments about the situation now, especially after the late night news yesterday night in Gaza.
Well, my comment will be is that disarmament is not an option for the oppressed. And the realization of the current situation in Gaza must start with, as I told you, holding criminals accountable, finding a way to force the 20-point plan to take place in the best way, which is not a peace deal. But for me, it's not a peace deal. It's a joke. And it's one that has been brokered by the Israelis, that has been written and drafted by the Israelis. I don't think there has been any justice, because if you look at Trump and the plan itself, it never talks about the Israelis. It just gives the Israelis what they want, and then you would see Wetkoff and the mediators talking about it as if it treats both sides, which is not a both sides story, fairly. That's not true. It just concerns the Israelis, but it completely neglects the Palestinians. That's not a peace plan. So we need people to understand that this peace deal has to have real, concrete steps to ensure peace for the Palestinians.
Rafik, the people here wrote this phrase, answering to you, instead of Abubaker: no justice, no peace. There cannot be peace without justice.
Exactly, and that's what I'm telling him. It's, you know, you have to demand justice. You cannot let war criminals run around the world and without accountability. That's not the world that we live in. It's the law of the jungle. It's like a zoo that, or it's like a forest that nobody is held accountable. You know, you can kill anyone, you can maim anyone, you can destroy as much as you can, as long as you have the power. And this is corruption, and this is racism, this is bigotry, whatever you want to call it, discrimination and double standards. Look how they looked at the Ukrainians and how they looked at the Palestinians. This can tell you everything about it.
That's true. I have to say that you have the love of everybody. From here at the chat
I really
we have,
appreciate it.
They say we're very sorry for our government, and people of Greece are not like the government of Greece.
Absolutely, but my message to them is very obvious, and I need them to be wholeheartedly honest with me that we're not going to invest in genocide by our own taxes. Don't invest in don't finance the next phase of killing of Palestinians, of the killing of Palestinians. They have to remember that all the time. And this government, whatever it takes, if I were you and you were me, I would never back down in the face of this government, no matter how corrupt and strong it is, until I make sure that I'm not funding the killing of innocents or Palestinians and my neighbors anywhere. Because Greek culture and the Palestinian culture are intertwined, and we will have to know that. Nobody should intervene as a devilish force, as an evil force to separate us. And that's what we need. We love you, believe me. A lot of people, and before 2023, October 2023, if you don't know, in September 2023, that is almost 3 years ago, 2 years ago, and 1 month or 2 months, 19,000 Palestinians have fled, and most of them ended up in Turkey. And this takes us to the point, the first question that you ask, why they fled Gaza? Because of the occupation and the siege. And they took an illegal route because there was no way to get out of Gaza legally because of the Israeli siege and the borders they have imposed, the illegal borders they have imposed and surrounded Gaza by, because it's a beleaguered territory. And then most of those 19,000 youths who fled Gaza through the sea, they ended up in Greece. And I know some of them are here.
I hope we treat them well. I really hope we do.
The best
do you mind if I ask some more questions, Rafik?
Not.
I'm taking over. again.
You're allowed to do it.
I was in the United States 2006, and I did an interview with a great man who was one of the leaders of the American Indians and their fight against for the history, for surviving the history of the genocide that they had to face for decades there.
Yeah.
And he told me we were very wrong that we didn't do what the Palestinians do. The best people fighting against it was 2006, fighting against the genocide and knowing how to keep their culture are the Palestinians. So I want this message of sumud. Am I saying it right?
Yeah, that's correct. Steadfastness.
Yes, steadfastness. And also this message of you as a society. I know that there's corruption and I know that there are people who are bad people, but as a society, you seem to have found something that's missing in lots of societies.
Absolutely.
What is it and how it happens?
Love is important when it's right. And hope is important. If you have hope and love, and I would say love is hope. If you're hopeful, you're loving. And that's what it is about. And in Gaza and across occupied Palestine, we have this mentality and this spirit that no matter what happens around us, we still have things that we should be hopeful about. You would see, like, for example, me and many other people, I met a lot of people in Gaza who lost their entire families. And I remember this one story about a young man who was like 17, 16 years old, and he lost his right hand and his entire family. He lives in a tent. And he told me one thing that is still striking me. I just need to wear my T-shirt on my own. I don't need the help of anybody. But he said to me one thing, that there are still many things, many blessings that I have. I can see the light. I still have a tent to live in. I still can breathe. I still have my eyes. There are still many things that I am very hopeful about and that I'm really thankful to have. So we have contentment, love and hope. Those three things, and steadfastness is a derivation, is a product of these three qualities. And when we have these things, then no one can stop us. And the spirit, believe me, the spirit, when it is like, is stronger than the weapons, no matter what weapons they use. If you have a spirit like this, you can fight the most developed weaponry in the world. And that's what happened. Exactly this is what happened over the past 2 years.
I was hoping that you will talk about this force of nature where the women, the mothers of Palestine.
Absolutely. I can't tell you how formidable, invincible, extraordinary they are.
I think they are the root of their existence and the root of Sumud, because you are the product of those mothers.
Absolutely.
Who learn
definitely.
how to bury their children one moment and fight the fight in the next one.
I mean, when you look at Gaza, like I remember very well when I was in Gaza, when I was seeing like mothers in the graveyard, because I reported from the graveyard in the hospital, the mortuary of the hospital, and mothers losing their loved ones and weeping in grief. And after, they kept weeping for quite a long time, like 30 minutes or 40 minutes or probably hours in front of the mortuary of the hospital or in front of the graveyard of her sons or children. They would say, Alhamdulillah, which means thanks God, and then it's worth it. We're going to keep, delivering and keep growing and raising our babies and children because we're going to free it. And he's not dead, he's alive. He went for another place, in a better place. This kind of mindset is unbeatable. And that's what mothers have always told us, that no, go and fight, we're proud of you. The dead cult is Zionism. It's literally Zionism. But the Palestinian mothers, they don't have any choice. But believe me, and believe me, well, I said believe me many times, but anyways.
We do believe you, Abubaker.
No, but I'm going to undermine this. If women, in Gaza, women are not allowed to pick up guns. No, they're not allowed to join the armed resistance. But if you tell a Palestinian mother or woman, come and join the armed resistance, they will be in the front line.
I'm sure about it.
They'll be in the front line. They don't have a problem with that.
You cannot have fighters without having mothers that are ready.
Exactly. But I'm just saying also they're ready to do whatever it takes.
I'm asking that because there's this other hasbara, this other lie that the women are in Palestine are oppressed and they're not free, and that's why they don't leave, and things like that.
Well,
and
the number of women who have left Gaza over the past years is thousands of women. And they are now professors in the best universities around the world. They're students in the best universities around the world. What are they talking about? There are many women who have been evacuated to Ireland recently. It's nonsense. It's absolutely nonsense. Women have the most honourable dignity and unmatched dignity in Gaza. And I'll tell you something, when they get married, they are not asked or entitled to pay one single penny in the home, one single cent in the house. They're just treated like queens. And if someone verbally harasses them in Gaza, the harasser takes an unbelievable fine, up to 2,000 euros. And then they will be punished by law, and then they have to form or to issue an apology to the family, to the targeted family of the woman.
There's a question about your English too here. How your English are so good.
Well, I was asked this out of the studio as well. Well, I learned English through football, and when I was a kid, because I was an avid football fan. It's not the case anymore because football is also corrupt, has a lot of corruption, and the president of FIFA is a hypocrite and a sycophantic person. And I learned it through football. So I was watching a lot of football matches, interviews of the players, of the coaches, of the fans, and I was always like watching the games in English commentary, and that's how I picked it up.
It's great. It's obviously great.
Oh, thank you.
The schools in Gaza were under UNRWA. We have to say to people that UNRWA is different from any other refugee organization in the UN.
It's the best organization, I admit that.
Because they are created so that you can return to your homes. The people in Gaza are refugees again and again and again in the history of...
But they haven't abided by these laws. And I would just be very disappointed by UNRWA for many things. And one of the main reasons is UNRWA could have done more over the past years, but still the cover they're under, the umbrella they're under, is made of the fabric of imperialism. This is a tool for imperialism. If you care about people in Gaza, you could have done a lot more. They could have pushed for accountability, pushed for investigations of Israeli war crimes before October the 7th, but they didn't care. And that's one of the things about it. I feel more like they were intending to feed the population, treat them like animals in a cage, and then by that you make them forget about their own case or cause, which is returning to their homeland and having a freedom inside their homeland. And that's something UNRWA didn't really work hard for. There is one final thing about it, there is a Uniting for Peace resolution. Not a single, and that's why I told him that humanitarian organizations have paved the way, and the human rights associations have paved the way for the genocide to continue or to happen. The Uniting for Peace resolution is a resolution that will enforce the return of Palestinians to their homeland, that will enforce the lifting of the blockade, the removal of the blockade, that will enforce the rights, the human rights for Palestinians. These are the rights that this resolution will make sure it will achieve. And then this Uniting for Peace resolution has been totally put aside by these humanitarian organizations or human rights associations. So why, when this particular resolution will ensure the return or the restoration of human rights for Palestinians, why do they ignore activating or passing this particular resolution? The same with passing the Occupied Territories Bill in Ireland, which means stopping the profiting or the profits from illegal occupying settlements. There are many bills, many laws, many resolutions that have been neglected. It's much more of a legal field that lawyers can speak better about, but I know them and I've read about them. And the reason why they're ignoring this is to kind of run away from demanding justice and holding people to account who have been liable for the genocide in Gaza. So this is one of the important things. That's why I'm always against the NGOs, the INGOs in particular, because they're not serious when it comes to the plight of Palestinians, but they're more serious when it comes to any other lives. And you could see that very obviously. It's illustrated by the ICARC when they treat Palestinian bodies and they treat Israeli bodies, and the way they care, the level of care they have about Palestinians and they have about Israeli prisoners and Palestinian hostages. It makes it makes really a very astonishing difference what they are doing here and what they're doing there. That's what it is about. So that's why we need a body, a humanitarian organization of Palestinians, operated, run by Palestinians, to give Palestinians what they really deserve. And if your human rights organizations care about Palestinians, those resolutions mustn't have been neglected and put away, but they must have been activated and passed for a very long time. And this would have ended this conflict for a very long time. But the ones who are running these organizations are not interested in peace. They're interested in killings and foreign wars and profits of genocide and slaughters of people.
Yeah, it's an apartheid, and it's a disgrace for the human race, even without the genocide. What was happening to Gaza, and what happened with the genocide is, as you said at the start, that people started noticing, people started realizing, and people started seeing the real nature of the Israeli regime, of what they are and what they do.
It's absolutely a regime. I agree with you. It's an ultra-Nazi terrorist colonial project that aims, and that was created and established to eliminate the Palestinian states and the Palestinian existence. And for over 75 years, if in nuking Gaza and throwing a nuclear bomb on Gaza does not affect the Israelis, they would have done that a very long time ago. And they are very tired of the Palestinian existence, and that's what they want to achieve, but they can't do it. Because, as I told you, the spirit of the Palestinians is unbreakable, because it comes from nobility and it comes from honesty and devotion, and you can't beat that. Steadfastness and resilience are what makes it, and hope and love are what makes people really indigenous to the land, and we are the indigenous people to the land, of course.
Yes. A friend told me we had a demonstration in Crete for Palestine, and I guess the American base is there. And he told me, you don't love your land because it's beautiful. You love your land because it's your land. It's your state. It's your place. It's where your knees got blood for the first time when you started to walk. You know, it's all this. Rafik, we have just 5 minutes. Do you have any other questions? Because I'm like monopolizing the...
My last question could be, what makes you feel close to your homeland here in Greece?
Well, I mean, everything. I'm very impressed. And I just told her earlier that the best time that I've spent, because I went around for some countries as well, the best time I've spent is here. The olive oil is the same. The way the neighborhoods are built is also the same. I was talking to my friends in Gaza, my family, and I was telling her, look, I'm in Tel El-Hawa in Gaza. And I was showing them photos of the neighborhood, and it's exactly the same. And they literally said to me, oh, this is Tel El-Hawa in West Gaza City. And I said, no, it's in Athens, it's not in Tel El-Hawa. Many things here resemble too much of the Palestinian culture in Gaza. The people are very welcoming. They speak loudly as well. I think we speak loudly a bit as well. And, you know, they're very friendly to each other, very close to each other, not like the Europeans. Like here, if someone is hurt, people would come in to help him or to help them. But in other parts of Europe, nobody cares. It's like individualism and materialism control other countries, but here it's not the same. And this is what Gaza is about. Also the food, because I mean, it's good to now. I'm allowed to talk about food since there's a ceasefire. But I mean, the olive oil is astonishing. I love the olive oil with basil. It was very amazing. I really loved it. And, you know, the fruits, everything. And I'm just across the water. We're neighbors. I mean, I feel very home here. As much as Ireland is very beloved, I hope this is not broadcasted, but anyways, but Greece is much more beautiful. I loved it more, honestly. But I owe the Irish a lot of things. They're really part of me.
We all owe them for their fight for Palestine.
They're very great people. But to me, because we're neighbors, I'm going to be a bit biased here.
Okay, we accept that. We really like that, I can say.
I would like to say thank you, both you, Abubaker, and you, Lăbrινή.
Thank you. This is the end of our show. You have other interviews to give. You're going to get very tired in Greece, but next time you're here, we're going to take care of you.
As long as I have this olive oil and these olives, I'm not going to get tired.
I promise.
That's a deal.
Σας ευχαριστούμε όλους πάρα πολύ. Θα τα ξαναπούμε αύριο. Εσύ είχες Σαββατοκύριακο εκπομπές, ρε φίλε.
Σαββατοκύριακο. Και στα ελληνικά σας ευχαριστώ πολύ και τους...
Podcastικά αύριο λοιπόν με το ακροατήριό μου.
Και τους ακροατές και τις ακροάτρες και το Press Project.
Σήμερα μπορείτε να δείτε από κοντά τον Abubaker στο Lofos Art Project, όπου στις 7.30 θα μιλήσει για τη δημοσιογραφία στη Γάζα. Ήταν ο τρόπος που αποφάσισε το δίκτυο δημοσιογράφων για την Παλαιστίνη στην Ελλάδα να μιλήσει για τη δημιουργία του, γιατί πιστέψαμε ότι πρέπει να είναι ένας Παλαιστίνιος συνάδελφος που θα πει όλα αυτά. Έτσι. Και είναι όχι μόνο Παλαιστίνιος συνάδελφος, αλλά και παιδί μας και το πρόσωπο της αληθινής δημοσιογραφίας πραγματικά. Έτσι. Θα τα ξαναπούμε αύριο. Σας περιμένουμε στο Λόφο.